Can I welcome everybody to our online meeting via Microsoft Teams? It's the Quinton Ward Forum, and today is Tuesday, the 18th of May. I just want to very quickly do some introductions because we have got somebody rather special here today, because we have got our new ward councillor, Dominic Stanford. So Dominic, I know you're going to give us a little bit more in a bit, but if you just want to give them a wave so they can see who you are.
Hi everyone that doesn't know me, Dominic, and as Kate said, very pleased to have two councillors back in Quinton.
So am I. It's going to be lovely having somebody else to work with. So, so if I can just remind everybody that we will be recording this, and residents listening and participating in the meeting, if you're just aware, that will be available. So if you do contribute to the meeting, that will be available for future record. So local news and updates. So first of all, I'm very pleased to welcome our MP Preet Gill, who is MP for the Edgbaston constituency in which Quinton sits. We've put Preet here because she's not sure whether she's going to be able to stay the full time. I hope she is going to be able to. Hopefully she will be, but I know what precious time MPs have. So Preet, I'd like you to welcome you to the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Kate. And can I say I will definitely try and stay for as long as I possibly can. But it's fantastic to have the opportunity really to hear from you all and come and provide an update to you. What I've really seen over the last year has been so many people in our constituency, so many families really struggling, and I've received thousands of calls and emails from residents. As you know, my office has been open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 p.m. throughout the whole of the pandemic, and so we haven't had any break whatsoever. And it's really been a very difficult situation, but thankfully we're slowly starting to come out of lockdown, and I hope this means we will see many more of our businesses opening and the economy definitely picking up. I want to see our high streets thriving. I want to see those investments, especially around the Faraday shop, something I was already working with the council as to how we regenerate and how we make sure that we don't have these vacant lots that can cause so much antisocial behaviour. But actually, I want to see the investment in our local areas, and I don't think any of our wards should be left behind. And so it's really important, the work that we have been doing over the last year. It also means that from next week, I'm actually going to be able to do walkabouts throughout the whole constituency. And every week I plan to be in a different ward. And then from the 2nd of July, I will be reopening my in-person surgeries. I know a number of people have been in touch saying, when are you likely to get those up and running? Of course, we've got to wait for the May 21st announcement, but I'm hopeful that first week of July, we will be back up and running in a very safe way. But over the last few months, I've been really busy in working with Kate, our local police, the council, of course, most importantly, residents and our partners. And I think we've really achieved a lot when we come together and work together, whether that's sharing intel, whether it's addressing issues around fly tipping, antisocial behaviour. So many of you will know that I issued a speeding survey across Quinton. I've had a huge level of response in respect of that. And the information I've had back, I'm actually looking at what the long-term measures to tackle speeding on the roads around Quinton, including setting up a local speed watch group, which is something I'm launching later this week. As you will know, and you may have read in the Birmingham Mail, the police are waiting for the Black Country and Birmingham injunctions to come into force. They were obviously there, but they have obviously lapsed. And so this is a matter now that the police needs to take up. But the Speed Watch is going to be working with the police so that we see that immediate enforcement action is taken against those who think it's okay to speed across our roads. And I have to say, this hasn't been just something that has taken place in Quinton. We've actually seen it across the city. It's coordinated and organised, and there has been an arrest that the police have done recently, and there's going to be some follow-up action so that we can absolutely make sure we are targeting those people that are really responsible for this. But I'm also speaking with the police and the City Council to scope out measures to tackle the rise that we've seen in quad bikes, on motorbikes, which many residents have reported, whether it's late at night, whether it's on the weekend. And of course, a lot of this is associated with antisocial behaviour. On Simmons Drive, Highfield Lane and Dwellings Lane, we've had the fantastic news, actually, that speed cushions are going to be installed in June. I really want to just take the opportunity to thank Councillor Booth for all her hard work in getting this done. I know this isn't a simple task, and what we don't sometimes realise is just how many months of work behind the scenes it takes to actually get through all the necessary steps and the different hurdles that you have to do. So I want to say a real well done. It's something that you as residents have raised numerous times again, and I know it's needed, and I think it's going to really make a big difference to the community when it comes to safety on our roads. In terms of Quinton Road West, I'm currently in discussion with BCC. I have been on the resurfacing the road. I know it's something that many of you raised. I've seen it on my walkabout when I've been there recently, and I've spoken to the council, and we're going to be setting a consultation which is going to begin very shortly, and following this we'll be able to get a clear date as to when work can begin to resurface that part of Quinton. In terms of Moat Meadows and Simmons Drive antisocial behaviour, again, I've been talking to the police to increase patrols in the area, but I've also asked Highways to fix the lighting issues that many of you residents have raised with me. I mean, look, policing is an issue across the constituency. The very fact that we lost 2,200 police officers is the reason, you know, that we have our neighbourhood policing that goes off on duty at 11 o'clock. I mean, it's just shocking. I remember neighbourhood policing when actually they knew the residents that they were engaging with. They knew the demographic changes taking place in various wards. And of course, when officers are having to go off at 11, we are reliant on central response. And if you look at the city's emergency hotspots, it isn't always the south of the city. It certainly isn't Edgbaston, because it's going to be places like Aston and Nechells and Rockery Road and Soho Road and Central that are going to be where the resources are, because we've seen a surge, a huge increase in violent crime across our streets. We certainly have seen parts of that in our constituency. So there is so much more that we really need to do. And I'm talking to the police. I'm really pleased that the new Police and Crime Commissioner has pledged to recruit 450 police officers. We absolutely need to get neighbourhood policing back to where it was. I mean, many of you probably don't even know that the neighbourhood policing that go out to investigate a crime, they're not the ones that actually investigate the complete investigation. They have to pass it on to the investigation team, and then they send it on to CPS. So there's some real work that needs to be done in terms of reorganisation of the police, making sure that the police aren't sitting behind the desk, they aren't filled with bureaucracy, but actually they're out on the streets, making sure our residents are feeling safe and working with us to tackle some of the issues that you and I and elected members are consistently raising. Many of you will have started to receive my bus survey. I've been doing a lot of work, as you know, hammering National Express with all the changes that they have continued to make without the lack of consultation. I'm really pleased that challenging them. I think many of you will remember there was a consultation that took place in our constituency. I think it took place across the whole of South. They had about 10,000 people feed into the consultation. But when I asked them for basic information as to what is the postcodes of all those people that contributed, because you made all these changes across our constituency, can you give me that information? And do you know, they couldn't tell me how many people from the constituency had actually filled out that consultation, and therefore they proposed to make those changes, which I have been challenging. So this survey that we are delivering is in conjunction with National Express. And the whole purpose of this is that they will take the evidence base from this and they will absolutely make the changes, because September is the next timescale that changes are going to be made ahead of next year's bus schedules. And so this is a piece of work that I am doing and really pushing them, because many of you have raised concerns about changes, and of course it affects most of our elderly population as well. In terms of the Quinton Community Hub Police Station, I mean, I think since I've been elected in 2017, this is something I've been really pushing to kind of maintain a police hub in our constituency, but of course with the cuts that we've had across the West Midlands policing, we haven't been able to do that, because of course the cost of many of these buildings is just astronomical and we need more officers. But actually there has been an opportunity, and I have to say there's been an interest from the police as to what we can do and how we can maintain this for community use. So I'm continuing to have those conversations. We've been in dialogue for over a year about this. I'm trying to bring in other providers. So this is something I really want to come back and share with you as the community, as to how you can support and do the work that we are doing with our partners in terms of retaining a space where we could deliver a lot of the one-stop shop and hub services that Quinton rightfully needs. Fly tipping around Quinton, especially Woodgate Valley Country Park. Again, I've been in discussions with BCC about fly tipping, how best to deal with these issues, as I think this is something very much a citywide problem. And I hope I'm going to be able to share some news on this very soon, which will make a real visible difference to our city and our local neighbourhoods. I also had the horrendous fly tipping on the Quinton Expressway cleared up by the council, so I'm really pleased that they were able to come out and do that. And just on a separate note, Since 2017, many of you know I live in the, just on the border of the constituency. So I'm very close to where my GP surgery is, Safe Lodge. You will have seen it in Birmingham Mail. This is an exempt property in the north part of Edgbaston. But like many other providers, it's caused so many issues for the local community. I mean, my GP is next door. I know I certainly don't feel safe when I'm walking there with my children. I certainly know for the last 20 years, residents that live around that area haven't always felt safe. So recently it was given an 8-week closure notice in order to improve. The problem is that the government just won't bring in regulations, and it won't address these providers. And so pretty much there isn't the powers that the council has. It's the social housing regulator that actually has the powers. But what we've been able to do, which I think has been absolutely fantastic, is that they've been given an 8-week closure notice in order to improve. Why was this groundbreaking? It was groundbreaking in Birmingham, and it provides a roadmap of how we can work together, because actually over the last 2 years, residents, myself and the local sergeant, who's been absolutely brilliant, we have been building up the evidence base. I've done spot checks. I am writing to all of the providers. So I now have a list of all these properties in Quinton. Many of you have already written to me about some of them, but I'm writing to all of the providers to express my concerns about the conditions of the properties and to make sure that they are supporting residents. Residents are not saying that they do not want vulnerable people living close to them. What residents are saying, that these providers have a responsibility and a duty of care, especially when they're applying for an enhanced support from DWP. There are 3 providers that the housing regulator is actually investigating in our constituency at this moment in time. And so I'm writing to them as well, putting them on notice that I will be visiting them, because we can't have this situation where residents are left to deal with antisocial behaviour, crime, drug issues, prostitution. And that's exactly what we are seeing across the Hagley Road. And that is something I want to really work to make sure that we can clean that area up. There's so much more I could talk about, but I know you've got a huge agenda and you've got lots of people on the call, and I'm sure they want to make lots of contributions, but I'm going to leave it there really, unless anyone has any questions. And I want to introduce our new Quinton councillor, Dominic Stanford. This is going to be his first meeting, so hopefully he's not too nervous, but let's just give Dominic a very warm welcome, and thank you so much from me. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Preet. We've got 2 hands up. Oh, I think Jim's put his down. So Dominic, you're the one with the hands up, and you're the person who's just been introduced. So let's move on to you. Thank you
very much.
I'll come back
thank you very much for the introduction, Preet. I appreciate that. That makes 2 of us for the first time at the Ward Forum in Quinton. I've got a couple of questions for you, actually, if you don't mind. You mentioned that you have done your survey on speeding and car racing. I was just wondering if you could give us some of the insights and data from that. How many people responded to you, what your key findings were, and how you're going to kind of take that forward outside of the speed watch.
So, Dominic, we've just put together a report. So we're speaking to the police about this, and I'm happy to share this because I'm actually going to put this out very shortly. So just agreeing, of course, I will share some of the information that many people are saying. Of course, speeding, having lived very closely there and visiting the area, I see that speeding is an issue, not just in our constituency, but just really across Birmingham. And the very fact that we've had this injunction lapse, what I'm saying to the police actually at the moment is residents don't just want an injunction, they want much more than that. So we've been looking at scoping the cost of cameras, getting the antisocial behaviour team to think about actually how many cameras do we have, where are they being currently located, can we start moving them around the constituency in areas of real great hotspots. This is an accident waiting to happen, and none of us want to see this situation happen and anybody get injured. So the more we can do working with our partners, the surveys are still coming in, by the way. We've had somewhere in the region of over 300 at the moment. So it's been really brilliant to see the kind of qualitative data as well that residents are sharing with us, because it isn't just about speeding, it's about other issues that come out in these surveys, whether it's antisocial behaviour, whether it's drug issues and locally. So yeah, happy to put that in writing, because it will go out to Quinton ward members shortly in terms of what it is that we found and what it is that we are proposing to do.
Thank you very much. The other question I wanted to ask is that you mentioned several things, particularly around policing, that, as everybody here will know, have been long-term issues, and the issues that I've raised with the police, no doubt Kate has raised with the police, that our neighbouring councillors in Harborne and Bartley Green have all been raising with the police, particularly the issue of the quad bikes and the motorbikes. And obviously you've mentioned that that's something you're kind of having discussions with the police about. How, again, is that going to be taken forward? Because so far we haven't been able to make a great deal of progress. So I'm wondering if you've got an angle that we can't seem to find.
Sure. So under the Conservative government in the last 10 years you've been in power, we've seen 2,200 of our police officers being cut. Our neighbourhood policing has been decimated. So before, we used to have neighbourhood policing, which understood the communities. They would know people by name. They'd be able to go and talk to Joe Blogg down the road. They'd know what the changes in the area would be. And of course, we don't have any of that. What we now have is what the police are saying. They have no admin support. They have to respond to their own emails. There is so much bureaucracy that they're dealing with. They would much rather be out on the streets, but of course they can't when they've had their funds cut. Now, the answer from the Conservative government is we should increase our council tax by 5%, and therefore the public should pay for policing. The public should carry out street watches. Actually, our constituency has been brilliant because our residents do care about the areas that they live, and we've got phenomenal. I was just told by the inspector the other week that actually our constituency has got probably the most amount of street watches, and we're probably the most active in terms of mobilising our residents, which is really encouraging. But it shouldn't have to fall on us, and it shouldn't have to fall on you, and you shouldn't have to pay for this. The solutions are we need to give the police, we need to have more policing. We need to increase our neighbourhood policing. When I came in 2017, Dominic, you'll be keen to know that the huge vacancies that exist. In Quinton, we at times only had one police officer with one PCSO. I mean, that's what happens when you cut the police and you cut experienced officers. Of course, it takes time to recruit officers. It takes time to train them and for them to really get embedded and understand their constituencies. But the fact of the matter here is people don't feel safe when they call the police officers. Many people tell me they won't get the police officer turn up straight away like we used to in the day. They might come in a day or two. But of course, the burglars have gone and they won't even do the forensics at times. I mean, many people feel being a victim of crime is absolutely appalling in this day and age at the moment because they don't get the response and the support. And the fact of the matter is that the cuts have had consequences and we are seeing them across the constituency, not just in Quinton, as you say, not just in Bartley Green, across the constituency. Yeah, so this is something we need to keep pushing. We need to have more police officers. You would be, as a councillor, it would be great to see you pushing the Home Secretary to invest in the West Midlands and make sure we have more police officers on our street so that people in Quinton and Bartley Green and the rest of our constituency can feel much more safer. Thanks, Dominic.
Thank you. I've got one final question, if I may. Just on what you said, obviously you'll already be aware that the Home Secretary has already recruited 300 additional officers for the West Midlands. The final thing I wanted to ask you about was the Speed Watch group that you have talked about kind of setting up. I know there's several very, very effective neighbourhood watches in our Quinton ward, which is fantastic, and several of those are interested in establishing speed watches. Equally, I've been speaking to the PCSOs to work out where the best place would be to establish one, tackle the boy racing and speeding issue down West Boulevard. I was just wondering if you could explain to us how you're going to manage and structure your speed watch. Will that be managed centrally from your constituency office on the Hagley Road or Lightwood Park, or will you be finding a resident to run that street watch and take a lead? How do you envisage that working? How can residents ensure that they kind of know what's going on?
No, that's great. Thanks for that question. You'll find out very quickly that actually my style of working is I always work with residents. They always know best. They know the issues, and actually working with them to address the issues is how I choose to work. So I'll be working with residents groups. Many of them have already been in touch saying that they want to engage and be part of this Speed Watch group. So I'm speaking to the police. We haven't had the first meeting as yet, but we will do. And so that's how I plan to do it. And I will be taking part in that, of course. It will be very much resident led, and that's how I see it. And so the police and I will be supporting that, and of course we'll be working with the council to look at other measures. There isn't going to be just one, one solution to how we address this or fix this. There's going to have to be a number of things, and it can't just be reliant on the injunction, because that is only, as and when you catch these people, you can give them fines, etc. But it's about what happens in all the other times. Where's the police patrols? Where's the CCTV footage? Where's the we have number recognition cameras. That's the sort of thing we need, so we can absolutely, really get to the root cause of who these people are and who are responsible for it. So we are able to work together, and it's much more meaningful, and it gets the outcomes that we really need to see. So thanks for that.
I've got 3 people in the order I have the hands up. I've got Jim, Ben, Duncan, and Barry. So Jim, you first. Can you unmute yourself? We can't hear you, Jim. You'll need to mute yourself. Am I the only one, or is Jim frozen? No, Jim, are you able to unmute yourself? Lovely,
now,
thank
you hear me? Yeah. Sorry about that. I was not aware this was a party political broadcast. I thought it was a ward forum meeting. I think you're a bit disingenuous. I've been around Quinton for 45 years. A lot of people know me. And so why has it taken you nearly 8 years to talk about speeding, fixing Quinton Road West, fly tipping, antisocial behaviour, when those of us have been doing it quietly in the community and getting around with it? So, you know, what are you going to do that the rest of the community isn't doing? Hello?
Thanks, Jim. I really appreciate that. As you know, I was elected in 2017, and whilst the police have had an injunction in place, which has lapsed, as I spoke about, what I'm doing is following the survey that I've done, the evidence base that I've got back, and I'm able to challenge the council in terms of providing resources, is setting up a speed watch so we have more evidence that we can go back to highways, we can go back to the police, and we can go back to the council to make sure we do have things like CCTV, more patrols, because of course what we are doing is we are fighting with citywide resources. Every time I speak to the police about I want to patrol in a certain area, the first thing they say to me, nobody has called us, we don't know any concerns. Actually, this is the priority for the city. And this is all because we don't have neighbourhood policing. So that's the difference that I'm going to make, is working with the residents, looking at all the different options available to us, and making sure that partners are held to account. And because now we have the evidence base, which is the evidence from the residents telling us what the impact is, how often this is happening, the timeline, it means I can take that information back and I can really challenge the police, I can really challenge the council, and I can say, no, we need resources in this area, because of course we have a finite number of cameras which the police and the antisocial team have got to look at. Where are the hotspots? And they move these cameras around, and that's the idea. So we have to put in a business case and a pitch for it, and we are fighting with the whole of the city. And this is what happens, unfortunately. You know, I would not want this to be about politics, but when you have a city council that has lost £800 million of its budget, it has got to reprioritise what it is going to provide its constituents. And of course, it's got to look at what constituents think is more important for them. And this is why this has become political, because a lot of the conversations we are having, the resources I want you to have are not easily available because of the impact of cuts, unfortunately. But Jim, I am prepared to do whatever it takes to kind of really address this, because I'm really concerned about the concerns that residents are raising with me. And I've been there, I did the walkabout there recently. I know it's a big issue. As I said, I'm always in the constituency, so I appreciate what is happening as well. Thanks for your question.
Very briefly, the police station, the PCC closed it down. We had a meeting with I put a very cost-effective case for keeping the police station open. It was recently refurbished to the value of £250. As it stands now, it's only worth £350,000. Having said that, we could have put 2 policing teams in there, right? Didn't want to know, closed it down. Also closed down our very effective police community consultative committee, because the police wanted to go out in the community, because we were asking all we were asking all of the wrong questions because they hadn't got the answers. So you're talking to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. And this is Quinton first. I'm not interested in politics whatsoever.
Yeah.
All I'm interested in is getting Quinton back
so I think
to where
Jim,
it was. Now, because you were only elected, you were only elected in 2017, right? We've had 2 councillors for quite some time, so we brought this to them. Why has that not been done? I have been speaking to Highways. Highways told me that Quinton Road West would be resurfaced outside the police station in particular by mid-June. So I'll leave it at that. I mean, I'm not.
Jim, I really Yeah, no, thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate your questions. Again, like yourself, when I looked at all the closures of the police station across the constituency, I was really alarmed that, you know, other than Rose Road, we'd have no other police station open. And actually, the running costs of Quinton were the lowest. So I went back to the Police and Crime Commission. Of course, this was a discussion that took place around why we needed to close police stations, was because of relocating. There was a discussion happening at the time about the fire service and the police co-locating together, pooling their money and their budgets together, because this was about buildings and the cost of buildings. And of course, this is still an ongoing discussion that needs to happen in terms of where the fire service have also felt the impact of cuts. Now, this is a conversation I'm still pushing. Of course, the idea was that we needed to recruit more police officers, because that's the need, because that's what people are telling us, that they don't feel safe on our streets because when they're a victim of crime, the police are not turning up. And it's absolutely right. But there is an opportunity to actually really push and see if we can do something and get some funding around Quinton Police Station. And as I said, the Police and Crime Commissioner's office in the last year have been having these conversations with me now for some time. They're really keen and open to having this conversation, and that's what I'm trying to push. But what it would require is we'll have to bring other partners on board, because if you look at the yearly cost, I mean, it's not going to be cheap. But it's a fantastic building. And what will happen to this building? It'll end up being taken over by a housing provider if we don't do something with it. I want to see it stay for the community so that it can offer community resources that it vitally needs. And, you know, I think, you know, there's people like Barry, there's lots of great activists on this call that always, as you, Jim, who've always tried to contribute to the community and make a difference. And I want us to continue to do that, because for young people, there really is nothing to do in Quinton. And when I go to 4 dwellings and I speak to people around there and other schools, this is what parents are telling me, that they're really, really worried about what's available for the young people. There's very little.
I've got Duncan, I've got Barry, and then I've got 21 Hayden Weston. So next on my list is Duncan, then we'll get to you, Barry.
Good evening, Duncan here. Can you hear me? Okay, I think I just want to follow on from Jim's comments, because it's exactly what I wanted to talk about, and that's the future of Quinton Police Station. Because there seems to be, from what I understand from the last ward forum, from information from Councillor Stamford, there seems to be quite a lot of confusion over what's happening. So I completely agree, and it would be wonderful to see it back, even if it wasn't only a police station, but offering other facilities to the community. But I say there seems to be a lot of confusion over this. So this is really addressed again to Preet Gill. When can we actually get a definitive answer? So has the building been sold? Is it still going to be used? Is it who actually owns it? Is it crime property, which I believe it is, but I want to confirm it. When can we actually start to see some answers, rather than just lots of people saying we're talking to the police commissioner, we're talking to the fire service, we're talking to different people? When can we actually get some definitive answers?
Thanks, Duncan. Really appreciate.
Really snippy and snappy, because otherwise we're going to not have time for the other people. I don't want to stop anybody, and I certainly don't want to stop questions, but if you can make your answers very short.
I will do. No, it isn't sold. There is open discussion about what the Police and Crime Commissioner I'm waiting for is what are the running costs, the actual running costs of the building. The providers that are interested, you're absolutely right, Duncan. This can become a police hub, but it can also become somewhere where you can provide youth services, careers advice, a whole heap of one-stop facilities for people, so that they're not having to travel out. Yes, a real community hub. But the problem is we've got to be able to find a provider that's a community interest group, almost, that's got a bank account that is set up. It's about, making sure that they've got all the legitimate paperwork and they understand the running costs, how they're going to bring the money in. So the police are really keen. They're saying, look, we would rather serve the community of Quinton. How are we going to do it? This is the challenge for us. And this is where I'm looking at other funding pots to try and think, how can I bring in other funding streams to make this work? Who would be the provider? Who would be the group of people? Then we can set up a friends group, because I want residents to be part of how we shape this. What's the conversation? during COVID, it's been really frustrating, as you can imagine. But what I'm trying to say, there's a genuine, on my part, a genuine interest to try and really move this forward on behalf of the community. It has taken a bit of time, but I'm hopeful. Of course, we've just had another election, and now we've got a new PCC. So it's having these conversations again, isn't it? And trying to just pick up from where we've left. But I'm really hopeful. And if you've got any thoughts and ideas and you want to be involved, please reach out and get in touch. I'll be really keen to work with you.
Yeah, I'll send you an email. But I think it's, I think it's the community. We need the community. We need the police presence, because I think you mentioned Rose Road, but my understanding is also Rose Road is now closed.
Yeah.
So the nearest police station is Bourneville Lane. So even the response times from Bourneville Lane are totally inappropriate for the kind of crimes that are committed, especially in that area around Woodgate Valley.
You're absolutely right. I mean, there was a conversation that I was having back in the day with the fire service about, could the police and the fire service be co-located at Woodgate Valley? I mean, that was a discussion that was being had, but of course it's for those above who own, these properties and understand the finances, for them to come together and make a decision. It's something I'm certainly pushing for, because I can see the benefits of co-location.
Okay.
I will stop that there if you don't mind, because we've got 2 more people with questions and we've got a lot of other business to the forum. So Barry, you're next, and then 21 Hayden Weston. Barry, you able to get yourself unmuted?
Hello?
We can hear you, Barry.
Right. Sorry, it's half an hour gone now and we've got a full meeting, but I would just like to say that Preet and Kate, you both know that I dealt with, and my neighbours dealt with, a horrendous death outside our house.
Yeah.
I would like to hear a little bit more about that. Not now, but police structures are awful, including trying to make contact in emergency. I was on my knees after the first week and I broke down in the street on the Saturday because there was no support and no easy way of getting through when you felt there was a real problem. So police structures, let's not do the political ball game, please. Can we have some a detailed conversation at some point about the police structures? And secondly, surprisingly, the 120 youngsters who are outside my house, the vast majority of them were wonderful young people. They cleared up rubbish. They tried to be respectful. And as always, you've got the riffraff. I actually spoke to a bike leader. I flagged him down and stopped him. And we had a very good conversation that went from nasty to very understanding. So the young people don't deserve all this, get to the police, get the cameras and all the rest of it. We need to also engage with them as to a mutual respect, not a disregard because they race their bikes. Yes, they're horrendous, but there are massive issues here about why. Okay, so that's all I've got to say. Okay.
Thanks, Barry. I can pick that up with you because, I know you're going to write to me, so I'm happy to have that conversation separately. Great, thanks for raising it.
Thank you. And then our last question is Edron Hayden Welsh. I don't know whether anybody's there because I can't see a picture. It's saying the person is offline. So I think I'm going to move on from there and allow new councillor Dominic Stanford to introduce himself. Thank you, Preet. Thank you very much for making yourself available for us.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Kate. I appreciate that. I think the Hayden Weston 21, I think that's Paul and Vicky Weston on their son's account. So hopefully they'll come back in because I know they'll have some things to say. The only thing which really I want to bring is that hopefully we can have a very constructive meeting for the next hour or so. The priority from where I'm kind of sat is that we need to make sure we're on track and making sure we've got a rough delivery plan for some of the things which have been highlighted in the ward plan, which I know has been a concern for lots of residents, that we're not necessarily making the progress with it, or there isn't necessarily the clarity of whether it's confirmed and agreed, or if we can move on with it. So that's the main thing which from this meeting kind of onwards, I think we should be really focusing on kind of honing down on and starting to deliver on. The other thing which I wanted to briefly mention is that with Councillor Booth, we've kind of discussed in the last couple of weeks how the best way of kind of moving our ward forum meetings on from lockdown regulations and the like. So we are hoping that obviously we can start getting some face-to-face meetings back up and running soon. Whether that will be the next meeting or the one after the next meeting remains to be seen, but we'll keep you posted, because I think for everyone's sake, it'll be good to get some face-to-face time and really hash out some of those details as well. The other thing I wanted to mention was that, as many of you will have seen kind of in our kind of election campaign and prior to that, with some of the campaigning I was doing before the election campaign kicked off, one of the big things that we've already touched on has been the speeding and boy racing area. So by way of a brief update on that, I know some of you attended 2 of the community meetings that myself and Councillor Fowler in Harborne attended. But equally, the most recent one, we also had Councillors John Lyons and Bruce Lyons from Bartley Green. Priest is right to highlight that this is a citywide problem, and every ward across the city is going to be calling on their police to do more and try and get more presence and the like. So having that kind of real cross-ward engagement has been really valuable, and I think has helped us to get the police sergeants from across different wards working together quite effectively. So the main update which I wanted to give was that we, working with the police sergeants, had agreed with them that they were going to begin the application process for putting an application for temporary semi-fixed cameras for a 3 to 6 month period on the West Boulevard. So they were presenting that application to the local delivery partnership, after which point it then has to go to an agreement. From there, it has to go to a consultation, and believe it or not, speed cameras are actually the responsibility of the council to decide where they go, rather than the police, which seems a little bit confusing, but sadly that's how it works. So it does get caught up in bureaucracy. But I just thought I'd let you all know that ball is rolling, and we'll continue to kind of apply more pressure as we can to try and get that kind of delivered quite quickly. Other than that, I'm happy to move forward with the agenda, because I know we've got a lot to discuss.
Thanks very much for that, Dominic. So I'll just give a very quick update. I'm not going to cover all the things that I know Preet has covered, but just to give a quick run through. You've mentioned the speed cushions on Simmons and Highfield. That's amazing. We've mentioned the resurfacing of Quinton Road West. I'm looking into getting a better footpath that leads from the Highfield Farm Recreation Park down from where the swings are, down actually into the valley. Barry and I actually walked it not so long ago, and Phil raised it with me. So I know Sue Amy is looking into they're not putting bark down. I think Peter also you were involved in this, but we're looking to putting this plastic down where the grass grows through, so it supports the grass, so it reduces the amount of mud. So that's something that Sue's having a look through her thing. I don't know if you've been down Quinton Road West, but you will see the planters outside the co-op looking absolutely beautiful. We've got a group now, Blooming Quinton, who have worked tirelessly. It started with a young woman who started looking after the planters right at the start of lockdown in an attempt to cheer herself up. And she reached out to me earlier this year just to see if we could help. We've got a really fantastic group of people. We've planted bulbs there, we've planted flowers, they've been maintained, they look wonderful. And Blooming Quinton moved on, and over the weekend they were out doing litter picking at the top of Simmons, opposite that little group of shops. And they're working with a group called Woolly Mammoth, and we're sowing wild seeds as well as doing litter picks. On the flight of being litter picking community cleanups, as you know, I regularly inside the whole ward trying to reporting issues, and I must have reported hundreds and hundreds over the years. It's a real shame that we do have people who live in this ward, not just visit this ward to dump the flight of thing, but who live here, who just are prepared just to chuck things out. We will, I know both Dominic and I will be continuing our quest to keep the flight thing under thing, and I'm requesting if we can get some mobile CCTV cameras for our hotspots. I was delighted this weekend. I went down to Montague Street. I've managed to acquire some wonderful flight being removal or litter picking kits. We'll be making those available for community groups. We've got bags, we've got gloves, we've got children's litter pickers, we've got big grown-up litter pickers. We've got a lovely new cart, and we'll be getting a few more of those. So those will be available to community groups who want to go out and help us in supporting Quinton. And as I know you know, we've got a number, and many people on this call are those community litter pickers, where we give you gloves and bags, and you do that. So that's great. On the speeding vehicles, I was going to add. I don't know whether you read, there was a terrible accident in the valley where a dog was very badly hurt by a speeding motorcycle. And I know the police are very, very aware of these issues, but are not able to chase these vehicles. But they have promised me, or did promise me last year, that when we get to the point in the season where we're getting a few, they will try and get the drones in, and then they can track the vehicles to their home without actually chasing them, which means we're not putting the lives of the young drivers at risk. And I know, that's a new point, but the police obviously don't want to be involved with that. So food bank, unfortunately, as busy as ever, but we now also have a local pantry, which is running out of the Haven, which is on Reelstone Road in Welsh House Farm. It is local to us. I'm going to be taking a look at that, and that's somewhere where you can go in and actually choose. It's not like a food bank. You don't just get given stuff in bags with no choice. It's an area where you can choose, and I'll feed back to that at the next meeting. Dominic and I have talked about a return to face-to-face ward forums, and as soon as COVID allows that, we will do that. And when we do that, we'll be appealing to you, because I know I would very much like to go back to having some community chairs, and I think Dominic would like to encourage that as well. So if anybody would like to come forward to offer themselves as a community chair for when we get our first face-to-face, we will. And I think this evening we'll probably plan to have our next ward forum in July, with our fingers crossed that might or hopefully will be a face-to-face one. There's quite a lot of work going through on litter picking and cleaning up the city, and I know the council will be doing a lot of work on that, as paper went through cabinet today. So I'm hoping that, as well as the new litter pickers and kits that we've got coming in, there'll be a lot more going on. There'll be a real focused attempt over the summer with Keep Britain Tidy to make sure that we get rid of some of these really grot spots. I won't go on any further, because I do want to get on with other people, and we've got a lot to do in this meeting. Can I ask people who are going to be speaking next to try and keep themselves as quick as possible? I know we've given out a lot of pre-meeting materials, so if you just want to go through and pull up the main aspects of what you're doing. I can't manage to find, I've lost my timetable, but I seem to remember it was tours next. So do we have someone from tours here this evening?
Yes, you've got two of us, but I'm Anthony Shaw.
Brilliant. Lovely. Short and sweet, please, Anthony.
I will probably trip down what I was going to do.
Is this your first visit to Quinton Ward Forum? Lovely. You're very welcome. I've met you before, but you're very welcome to be here.
If you get I have ultimate power, so I will share my screen with you all. I will cut this down a smidgen, just so I don't drive everybody mad. Okay, I'm Anthony Sharples. I'm the Assistant Director of Research from Tours. And this is about a Quinton communication survey, which we've done as part of an ongoing project. So what we did is we put an e-survey out to 1 in 20 people in Quinton via email. We also put that on our website, social media, and we also did some paid advertising. We got 113 respondents. About 80% of those were women. Basically, the people were between 35 and 65. A lot of people from quintile 1 and 2 of the IMD, which was basically the more deprived areas of Quinton. And we also did 8 really in-depth interviews. So this is about ways that people want to communicate and learn information. The 3 top ways respondents wanted to communicate was either by social media, which is 65% of people, messenger apps like WhatsApp, email was also very popular. as far as social media was concerned, 70% of people respondents use Facebook daily. That's nearly double the national average. And then 25% of people used Instagram. 63% of people said they prefer to receive information by social media. When it came, there was a bit of a surprise here and an interesting one, and you'll probably be able to understand this as residents more than me. The top 3 ways that people wanted to learn about things that were going on or would engage them in a project was firstly social media, 78%. And but then actually old school leaflets, newsletters, no notice boards came up really high at 46%. So quite a contrast between in the latest ways of doing things and traditional routes. Local websites are also coming up here. I'm going to whiz through this quite quickly. There's a 23-page report that goes with this, and I'll circulate the slide set as well.
Share it with us afterwards. Just give us the high points.
Yeah. So 63% of people really engage with notice boards, which was quite good. 66% of people said they would get involved more if they had more information. So there's a thing about information here that keeps coming out, people needing more of it. 70% of people said they prefer to get stuff via social media, like we keep saying. Very, very quickly, really engaged population. 87% of people said that they like to read local information. 72% of people actually said it was really important to them. 64% said it was, they read something in the last week. So people are really engaged and they like stuff to be proactive. They like to do things. There's lots of comments in this. I'm not going to go through them all for obviously, but basically they were saying the importance of community information, the importance of being able to share information around the community, and all those are readily available in the report. Very interesting here. A lot of people were saying things about being trustworthy, and 55% of people were agreeing with the statement that local information was more trustworthy. But also 66% of people said they'd only use a recognised website, etc. So there was some interest in a local website as well, but we have to contrast that against people who were. A lot of people saying that that wasn't their first choice of where they would get information from. The first choice was social media, followed by printed material. Well, the type of things that people were really interested in, that's the array of them. The ones that people were coming forward time and time again saying, good news stories, events and plans after lockdown. Not really surprising. We've been locked down a little bit too long. In all the national press, it said, a lot of things about communities getting engaged because of COVID. What we actually found was, 38% of people felt that they were more engaged, but equally so, 33% said they felt less engaged. So, balancing each other out. I'm only going to pick one thing up in here. There was a lot of concern about people being digitally excluded, both in the survey and through the questionnaires. Let's very quickly, a few pages of summary. Hope I'm doing this quick enough. Quinton residents really like local information, that's obvious, and they like it being pushed to them. There's a need to consider that a large amount stuff is being done online, but people are always also very keen on things that aren't online, those notice boards, leaflets, newsletters. Residents are using a whole range of platforms, Facebook, I just whizzed that. Ooh. Sorry, that's me. I just put a notepad on my actual thing there. I'll just pop that up like that. Residents are using a lot of different things, Facebook, Nextdoor, etc. And as well as using these printed forms of communicating. And there's a real opportunity here about how we could possibly join these up moving forward. And if this was a preferred option about how we could improve things locally, the Active Wellbeing Society here are interested in helping to support the development of using that multi-channel approach, maybe doing something with some of the Facebook groups. You've got one Facebook group locally that covers a third of the population, so some of them are very big. There's also another offer here from us that you're in the process of pulling together a directory of services and things for Quinton, and if we could maybe add to that some of these online services and some other sources of information, we would be interested in providing the money for the print run on that, and looking at how we could help with the distribution of that directory across the ward, if you know, because that would really help do that balance. And just two very quick pages, which I'll skip through. The website, there was some interest in a local website. However, like I mentioned, the opposite argument to that is a lot of people were saying that they really wanted to communicate by social media, and if they weren't using social media, maybe some sort of offline, some things that aren't online, some printed traditional type of stuff. Lots of ideas around the sort of content, but like I said, events, local good news stories being very popular. And then really there was something here about the council, police, etc., being a little bit putting a lot more information out there. The NHS was also said notice boards needed to be refreshed more. A lot of people mentioning Nextdoor. That's a website if people haven't used it, where you can disseminate local information. And one of the things, just picking up on some of the conversations around young people, then I'm not aware, or we didn't come across many channels for young people. So if we're going to be communicating with young people across Quinton, maybe looking at Instagram accounts, maybe that's some sort of student project we might be able to look at, or the residents might be able to look at getting somebody from the uni about how we might be able to do that. So something that actually resonates with young people and it is in a platform that they might like. I can breathe now. I shaved a few minutes off how I did it in rehearsal, so relatively.
That's brilliant, Anthony. Dominic's got a question for you, I think, and then we'll move on.
I'll be very, very brief. I was just wondering, Anthony, if you'd be kind enough for anybody that's with us that isn't aware of the Active Wellbeing Society or doesn't necessarily know what your kind of role is within Quinton. Could you give us a brief summary of kind of the position of the organisation and what kind of objectives you're trying to meet, and where this survey fits in any of that?
It's right. With the Active Wellbeing Society, we're a co-op and and a community interest. We're basically a co-op. We run activities and we're part of the LDP. So this is a large project that is running sports and activities outside. We have had a great response. We've been involved in responses over COVID around doing food parcels. We did 60,000 food parcels in the first lockdown. There's a lot to us. We're involved in doing things like bikes. We're involved with the local GPs, including the one in Quinton with social prescribing. So we have lots of.
Anthony Staples will be a Tory.
Pardon? So there's all of those things that we're doing. As far as Quinton, a couple of years ago, we were involved in a community, like a local democracy pilot, and some of that, because of some of that, we needed to bolster some of the work that we have been doing, and some of that we've just put some new notice boards in over the last few days. I believe they were actually up today. My colleague Kate will be able to tell you that. And this piece of work around communication was really just an add-on to that, to sort of, well, how can we help people communicate better and get involved more? So that's how it links on, roughly.
Thanks very much, Anthony. You've done a brilliant job there. And of course, people can go to your website. So if you go to Cllr, the Active Wellbeing Society, you can do that.
Yeah.
So I will move on, if you don't mind, Anthony.
No.
And just to say, we're going to be talking about celebrating communities later, and I think Cllr's have offered to support any community groups in filling out applications for those grants. So that will be another layer which they'll be helping with us. So if I can move swiftly on, because I'm very conscious of the time, and I do really want to try and leave a reasonable amount of time for us to have a look at the priorities for the ward plan. So Peter, could I ask you, you want to talk very briefly, either you have shared a paper with us on the Quinton nature crisis, or did you want to speak to us, or did you want to leave it with the
yes, thank you, Kate, and I hope everybody has had a chance to read my submission to the Ward Forum. I wanted to draw everybody's attention to the nature crisis, and for my comments to act as a springboard for discussion on the way forward. So I'd welcome the views and suggestions of other people. And so at the end of people making their contributions, I would then like a few words said. I'll give my voice a rest and allow Vina to speak on my behalf. So it's really, as I say, as an assumption that people have read the nature crisis in Quinton and that they have suggestions and views about how it might be possible to have a nature recovery in Quinton.
Thank you. Did you say Vina was going to say something?
Well, Peter wanted to do that
No,
at the end. If anybody
to give everybody else the chance to say what they think about what has been submitted as nature crisis in Quinton, first of all.
Okay, I've got one hand up. It is Elliot, but Elliot,
Well,
I'm not sure whether I mistook
if-
you for the Hayden Welshes before, or whether you've got a question about.
I was actually hoping to ask a question of Anthony.
I think
It's been
he's
up
still
since
with us.
Look, Kate, can I suggest that if there isn't time for people to discuss this, that they could at least send their emails to yourself, and these could be passed on to me. They could email their responses to you, and then those can be passed on to me.
That's brilliant. Or to Dominic, and we'll make sure that they get to you. So, Elliot, what's the question of Anthony?
Oh, she's going back in time.
Sorry.
If we're pushing for time and people are struggling, I'm quite happy for people to either email me or Katie outside the forum if that helps things run more smoothly, or talk now.
Okay, so Elliot, did you have a question you wanted to ask Anthony directly, or do you want to email?
I've now put it in the chat, but my question was, having heard all of that, what's next?
Well, I suppose like we said, because you were involved in the initial conversation, we've put that out there. We've put the report out, which we said we'd produce, and I said there was an offer of support around around a couple of elements of that. So I suppose there's a question about who actually makes that decision. We've sort of said we're happy to do that and help with the directory. What we need to know if that's a reasonable idea from residents and I suppose Councillor Booth, etc. Whoever, obviously I think some of the groups that started these projects have probably gone by the wayside now, or so I think it's just a matter of if people want to sort of give us a steer or have a discussion outside.
Could I make a suggestion? Because we only saw your PowerPoint presentation this evening, perhaps what we could do is go away and inwardly digest it and put it down as an item for the next agenda.
That sounds brilliant.
Anthony, could you put your email address into the chat for people? I'm going to call in Barry. I noticed that 21 Hayden Welsh, Paul, I think, and Vicky have put a note into the chat. So Barry, I'm going to bring you in next.
Am I unmuted?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Sorry, Kate. As you know, that Elliot and myself, on behalf of the ward, have worked with TORS over 2 issues of the lift money. And I'm grateful to Anthony. I met Anthony as has Elliot, and certainly Katie and Jamie have worked very closely with. So we can keep putting the lift issue and responses back. basically, the website issue, the survey was done, which should have been done in the first place before the three previous attempts to start a website. I actually made my point very clear that we know what the outcomes will be. I don't think there's any shock. The sample response sums up Quinton. It's very low, and to talk about 80% of 100 people is a very low figure in a ward of 20,000 people. So it's been a huge process, and all credit to Anthony for the complexity of it. But I don't think we've gained a lot from it, and the issue still remains the same. People are saying that they don't really think the website is that valuable. It's social media they find is valuable. So we're going to keep coming back to little bits of this because of the nature of the ward forum at the moment. So maybe we need a separate approach where we just have a meeting primarily about technology.
Yeah, I think your point's very valid, Barry, and I think particularly in the last 12, 14 months during the pandemic, we have seen a rise in certainly things like Facebook groups in Quinton that people are naturally engaging with. So I think if we put the report onto
Beverly said there were a few problems with it, and it's gone when Kate's trying to talk.
Yeah, we do seem to be having a number of issues. Could I just ask if you could turn your cameras off unless you're speaking, and that might help us. So I'm going to turn mine off now, and then I'm going to ask Patrick. I'm quite happy for you to keep yours on while you're speaking, and if everybody could turn their microphones off when they're not speaking. I thought it was just me, but I think it might be a bit of everybody. Patrick, are you good?
Oh, yeah. Me next?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, I won't go through the paper. People have had a chance to read it, but I just wanted to pull out a couple of issues in terms of the Blooming Quinton gardening group. Kate, thank you for referring the lovely Jude to us, because I've been absolutely taken aback by how this has taken off. We've got a grant, we've got lots of botanical donations and a couple of financial donations. We've actually now had three sessions. The last one was last Saturday morning on that a long strip down the alley from Simmons Drive down to Dimsdale. We litter picked and weeded and planted wildflowers and sunflowers. But what was really encouraging about it was we got lots of love from passers-by and local people. We recruited a new volunteer. We engaged with the neighbours, which was really encouraging. We've started leafleting for recruits down Quinton Road West to adopt the planters. So we're going to be doing this at least monthly for the rest of spring, summer and autumn. And at the same time, inevitably we have to litter pick because these sites tend to be neglected and abused. But we really need to institutionalise the litter picks as regular gigs throughout the year, and probably more frequently than once every month. So it's great news about getting all that additional gear. So well done you. And I'd also like to thank Stephen Dodd, who's on the call this evening, who set up the Quinton Mental Health Support Group, and we put it to the members of the group that they'd be more than welcome to come and join in the guerrilla gardening, and they've agreed. And this is a really important thing, really, because there's really strong evidence that physical activity in a green environment increases its value in terms of physical and mental health and well-being. And then in terms of the COVID has exposed a food crisis both nationally and locally in Quinton. And if people haven't seen it, then I strongly recommend you access the Trust of Trust's most recent analysis of the last 2 years data nationally on food bank usage. It's absolutely shameful. And we're working with the Edgbaston Neighbourhood Network Scheme, Tours and Food Cycle. And a project which has been very successful in Plymouth called Grow, Cook and Share, and we've made some progress. We've got support in principle from the allotments. We've got absolute support from Tours and Food Cycle, and we've got support in principle from St Boniface to host this. So these will be prepping and cooking sessions involving local residents, and also providing once a week hot meals, hot healthy vegetarian meals for vulnerable individuals. The only issue we have now is covering the cost of the room hire, which is a bit more expensive than we thought. So we'll be putting a bid in for that, and we're also negotiating with the co-op in terms of funding. And I've got a meeting. The final thing, I've got a meeting with Mundev from Tours on the disability football team, which establishing in Quinton, and we're going to be talking to the Birmingham County Football Association on that as well. So that's just some additional information to supplement the report. I'm happy to take questions if there's time. Otherwise, people can put them in the chat or email me. Thank you, Kate.
That's lovely, Patrick. Thank you very much for that. I can't see anybody's hands up. So, Jim.
Patrick.
Jim.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Did you manage to find where the bowling green was?
Yeah, I've always known it's been there, Jim. I just didn't know it was being used.
Seriously, Patrick, have you been in touch with them?
I haven't, no.
Because they do quite a bit in the community as well. I think Barry's got his hand up. Perhaps he could bring them in, because he's been talking to them, because they've been there for years and years.
Yeah, so was it just?
I'll leave it to Barry then, Patrick.
Okay, thanks very much, Barry.
Hi, Patrick.
Hi, Barry.
Right. Thanks for coming to the conversation last week. It was good to see you there. I'm not going to make particular comments about report or anything. As you know, I wish I'd known about you in 2019, but I didn't find out about you until 2020. If I'd have known that you were there, I would have been calling on you to help move the parks development forward, but I didn't know about you till March. And obviously we had a very stressful year last year. In fact, I always said that Quinton was getting like a Game of Thrones without the blood. Well, I'm not sure we haven't had a bit more blood since, but we need to move forward, and we need to move forward together. I'm well aware at the moment that there's a top table established in Quinton, that Tours and Gateway are linked at high levels, and in some ways the conversation that emerged out of the stresses and strains of last year is almost a bottom table to a degree, with representations from everybody. So there's a massive issue here that unfortunately you're caught up in and I'm caught up in, and I never ever wanted to be in this political game that is being played, but I am. So I'd like to put out a discussion document, because it's all right talking about what each person's doing, footpaths or Muga's or Jude's great idea for what do you call it, guerrilla gardening. But there are some fundamental issues here about democracy and so on in Quinton. So I'm going to put out a discussion thing. I'm not interested in fighting people or whatever. I just want to move forward in Quinton, but I don't feel we can under the current situation. So I thank you, Patrick. I've always, although we fought, I always have recognised you have a huge talent, particularly in the field of health. I've heard you speak, you know your stuff, and you're passionate about health in Quinton. I also made a point of talking to Ewan Hamnet, who is a founder member of your Quag group. But you are a Labour group. You do have people coming to your table and out of your table.
Stop you there. I have to stop you there. This is not a political group.
Okay. Well, I'll put the document out again, Kate. I'll stop now. I'll stop now because I don't want to get into an argument, and I don't think this meeting is the right place.
Litter picking supports people in health and mental health. I mean, I'm really sorry, Barry, but I'll leave it to Patrick to say something.
Yeah,
Patrick, you're not a political group.
This is just tiresome, Kate. We're not a political group. If you look at the makeup of the group, they're representative of the local community. We've got Green Party members, we've got a couple of Labour Party members, we've got people who have no idea what politics they are. And I have told Barry endlessly that this is not a political group, and it's not. Just because he keeps saying it is, does not mean so.
Let's just draw a line under that. Barry, if you want to contact me separately, I'm fine to have that conversation, but please be reassured this is not a political group. I don't know, I've got one hand up. I think, is that Tony? Whoever it is who has their hand up, they will need to unmute. I don't think we have a hand up anymore. So I am going to move us on. Barry, did you want to say something about the before we move on to the ward priorities? Did you want to say something about Best of Quinton?
Best of Quinton is postponed. Elliot, I don't know if you want to come in on this. Perhaps you're the best person to talk about it at the moment.
Yes, could be. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Thanks. Yes, it was an unfortunate decision. We got, as those that attended the last Quinton conversations, are locked into a discussion about health and safety and COVID precautions. From the very outset, Barry and I, when we first floated the idea of the Best of Quinton, were absolutely clear it wouldn't work with COVID restrictions, and it had to be post the COVID restrictions. We picked out the target date of the 10th of July on the basis of the roadmap that was emerging. Quite simply, my view, and I think that's one of the others that were involved, including Jim and Phil, was COVID restrictions equals no event. You just can't have the sort of mingling. The hook for the event, of course, was the completion of phase 1 and phase 2 at the park. That would bring people in, but the actual event depended on people mingling, talking, looking at what's available in Quinton, and really just trying to increase that community activity. So after a long discussion at the conversation and thinking about it afterwards, we concluded that unfortunately we needed to postpone. And sadly, I think the increasing concern over the Indian variant of COVID probably means that we really were right to want to postpone. We just don't look like we'll get to a COVID-free event. So the plan, Kate, is as soon as we can see our way clear, we'll try and pick things up. And by the way, we've sent notes, hopefully, to everybody who's put so much work in, just to say, 1, thank you very much for the effort so far, and 2, to tell them effectively what I've just told you. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much for that, Elliot, and both of you and everybody who's been involved. It's such a disappointment that we're not able to move that forward at this point in time. But let's hope that we can just press the pause button and keep that enthusiasm, and it'll give us a look forward to whether it is in autumn or whether it's next spring. But I think, given the Indian variant, you're probably right. Jim, I can see that you got your hand up, so I'll bring you in.
Yeah, sorry, you call me in, Councillor? Hello?
Yes, I have, yes.
Right. Just to carry on from what Elliot was saying, it is a disappointment. But however, Barry and Elliot put an awful lot of work into this. I'm just a sort of a hanger on to the thing. But though it has been postponed through COVID or whatever happens, the work continues. We will still be meeting as a group and as a team to pull everything together and get more people involved. It's unfortunate in one respect, and on the other respect, it's very fortunate because we now have more time to organise and get more people involved and make it a big community event that we can all be proud of. So very well done, Barry and Elliot, for that.
Thanks very much for that, Jim.
Sorry, Becky.
Yes, thank you, Jim. Feel a bit undeserved. We haven't delivered.
Cheers, Jim. I've got a beer for you.
It's the fact that we've got the plans going, that you've got it started, that it's there. It will just rest in time, I'm sure. I've just seen we get to the ward priority bit now. I see we've got another councillor has joined us, so welcome Peter Fowler from Harborne. So can we have a look at the ward priorities? So the important thing I think to say here, and perhaps what we'll do first of all to kick us off, is Beverly, if you could show us the video in Celebrating Communities. Hopefully this time we will have it with volume, because what we need to do today is we need to confirm the ward plan, albeit put it frozen in time, perhaps like the best of Quinton, so that we have the ward plan in order that our communities or people within our communities can then start to bid on the Celebrating Communities for the Celebrating Communities grants. So Beverly, are you able to put that video on?
Yes, I shall do my best. And can you give me a shout if you can see it, please? I don't think I'll be able to see it from my screen, so I'm going to do it now, okay?
Great, that's lovely, thank you. Are we struggling with that, Beverly? Are we going to give up? I think we're not. I don't think we're having any luck with that, Beverly. So I think. Oh, we'll give it. Oh, here we go.
Developing community-led cultural events and initiatives that encourage intergenerational activities, celebrating identity and heritage.
So, if you have a project and you want to apply it, follow these simple steps.
First, develop your funding proposal in line with the funding criteria. Then, complete the application form by the advised deadline.
Every application will be reviewed by the council. We will be in touch if we need any more information or if we think your application could be strengthened.
Successful applicants will be asked to produce a written or video summary of their proposal so we can better understand how people will benefit from taking part.
And of course, all proposals must comply with the appropriate COVID-19 regulations and guidelines at the time of the project or event.
To find out more about this exciting opportunity, please visit the website.
Okay, Beverly, we missed the start of that. So if you could just run it back so we just have the start, which is the important bit. Cheers.
Every community from Northfield to Newtown, Small Heath to Sutton Coldfield has the chance to celebrate the Commonwealth Games through Birmingham City Council's new funding initiative.
Applications are welcome to fund projects from £100 right up to £10,000. All proposals must add value and align to one of these 3 Commonwealth themes.
encouraging communities to get out and get active by participating in sports and recreational activities.
Delivering community projects to help a local area get games ready. Is there a communal space you want to improve? Or perhaps you'd like to host a community celebration? We are open to ideas.
Developing community-led cultural events and initiatives that encourage intergenerational activities, celebrating identity and heritage.
So, if you have a project and you want to apply it, follow these simple steps.
First,
I want to stop it there, because we've seen this bit now. And unfortunately, the first bit, I don't know, did other people have it? I had a big grey square over it. So, sorry about it. We're doomed with that video clip. But as you can see, it's about the ward being able to fund grants from £100 to £10,000 in order to celebrate communities as we approach the games. You can go onto the Birmingham City Council website and look it up if you want to refresh that. But in order to get that money, we do need to make sure that our ward plan is there. And then I think what I've discussed with Dominic and also with Elliot, who's been very involved in this, is that if we do that and then we have a separate group meeting to actually go out and fill out the actual detail. So Elliot, did you want to come in on this?
Yes, thanks. Very briefly. We really need to review, as you said, review the priorities. Sadly, this plan is way behind, and the previous priorities and things are long since passed. So the priorities need to be reviewed. Most importantly, and the criticism I've made in previous meetings, is for many of the items, there is no plan. That is a little bit like Preet's presentation. What are we actually going to do and who's going to do it? So there are the simple items, such as, you know, the path in at Highfield Farm Recreation Ground. That's a pretty obvious one. It's got a cost, and I would imagine somebody could write a project quite quickly. It's understood. Some of the other issues that are in the ward plan as priorities are things like, the top ones are antisocial behaviour, environment and housing, community cohesion and local engagement. You can't just say, oh, you know, local engagement, let's spend some money on it. You actually have to have a plan of who's going to do what and when. And that, what I suggested to you earlier this week, Kate, which I think would work, is that we could say we've got a plan if we said that we've got a list of immediate priorities, such as a path or new swings or something like that. They're straightforward. And that for those things that need work, the other priority is to deliver a plan. And therefore, we have a ward plan. I don't know whether that went down well with you or not.
No, I think that's perfectly reasonable. I think we have the outlines of a plan. I think we have the plan which says things, but then doesn't back it up in the way that the pathway that we would take to do that. It doesn't actually have the roadmap of how we go about it. So it has aspirations, but it doesn't have. And I think what you've consistently said is it doesn't have things to back it up. So are we happy with the aspirations that we have in the plan at the moment, or do we want to have, and I think it's probably something that perhaps we wouldn't want to do with the 20 plus people we've got in the meeting today, do we have a group of people who would particularly like to meet with Dominic and myself to go through that plan? I can see Jim has got his hand up, and CS. Oh, is that might be Councillor Stamford. So I'll do Jim first. Sorry, I just saw the CS. So I'm going to do Jim first, then I'm going to do Dominic, and then we're going to find out who the other hand is.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kate. Housing. You know, housing has always been a biggie with me. I visited a property today to look at a project that we were thinking of funding through the Housing Liaison Board. and I am absolutely shocked. I'm not going to say where it is. We discussed this outside the meeting. I'm absolutely shocked that people can live in these circumstances in Quinton in this day and age. To me, housing has always been a biggie. We actually lack proper affordable housing in Quinton. The last houses were built, I think we had 13 tenants on the site of the old village stump or dump, whatever you want to call it. I think we need to really, because there's no, I'll give you an example. I had a young family with an autistic child. There was a property came up in Quinton, vacant, and this person was born and reared in Quinton. The family is well-known family in Quinton, and they said there were 27th on the list for this community choice-based lettings, and they had to move out of the area. And I thought that is absolutely shocking that a young family who live in Quinton had to move out of the area, whilst another family who didn't live in Quinton moved into the property. I think we need to address.
Unfortunately, Jim, it's all done on points. It's done on points at the moment. We are going to be building some homes at the top of Woodridge. I know there was some Birmingham City Council homes built off Dimmingsdale Bank. So there was some social housing built there recently, and also in what used to be Quinton, there are some homes being built. It's no longer in Quinton, but on Reelstone Road and around that area. So thanks for that. Can I bring Dominic in?
Thank you very much, Kate. Only briefly to say, and I know we're short on time, that from the ward plans perspective, I think there are some things which we are actually already delivering on, and that different groups are already kind of engaged on. It's just a matter that we're not necessarily tracking what they're doing and bringing it back to the plan. So I think it's really pivotal that we have not only kind of key voices that want to ensure that the plan is being delivered, but also that there are individuals that we've obviously seen and spoken to this evening that are delivering different aspects in our community. And without having all of those people in a meeting at once, then we're going to end up back to square one very, very quickly. That was the only thing I wanted to say, is that we should probably, most of us know who those individuals are from different groups, but we need to identify them and then make sure that they can all be available at the same time for a meeting. Otherwise, we'll continue to go around in circles.
Yeah, I agree with that. Elaine Kidney.
Hi, just trying to turn my camera. Yeah, so just a quickie. I do think if you're going to drastically change the community, then it's incumbent on us to have a really big consultation exercise, and not just one or two people. I mean, I reckon everybody in on this forum would like to have a say and an input into that, but I think it needs a much wider consultation, and that's all I have to say for now. Thanks.
Okay, thanks for that. I think we have been particularly unlucky, unfortunate in what's happened with the ward plan. If I remind you, the person who was working on this for us was Ken Brown, who we very tragically lost, as was Helen Bagley. What we need to do, and I think probably the best way forward, given the time, and I do acknowledge I have tried desperately to corral people in and to keep to timings, but it has been very difficult. Can I suggest, could you pop your name in the chat, and then Dominic and I will then do a round robin of those of you who leave us your emails that you would like to be part of a small group intensely working on and only on the ward plan to get it to that. I mean, essentially, it is a document that belongs to the councillors rather. But I'm assuming that Dominic, like me, really wants to engage those of you who are most interested in doing that. So what we do need to do tonight is just confirm that we're happy with the existing plan, and then if we could arrange something in the next couple of weeks so we can take it forward and then we can come back to it and add detail. Once we've confirmed the plan, doesn't mean that we actually have to stick with it and we can't ever change it until sometime hugely in the future. But it does mean that if anyone was to come to us tomorrow and say they wanted to access some money out of the Celebrating Communities grant, we would be able to do that. So is everybody happy with if we take that forward? If you're interested in being part of a ward plan priority group with myself and with Dominic, we will find a time that we can get that group of people together. Elliot.
Yeah, there's just a slight danger in what you're suggesting is that someone comes for the ideas should be congruent with the plan. If we're not careful, we've approved a plan that won't match the ideas. You
mean the ideas for the Celebrating Communities?
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, well, that's a very prescriptive thing. It has to fit in with those 3 different ideals because it's revolved around the Commonwealth Games. It's not just money that's available. It is money which is directed.
Sorry, I think isn't the test that the requests for money align with what's in the plan?
No, we just have to have a ward plan. Otherwise, we're not allowed to access the money. It's as brutal as that.
So the ward plan actually doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter what the ward plan says as regards to getting the money for the communities, because many, the ward plans are, what they are. So as long as we have a ward plan, the reward is we can apply for money from the Celebrating Community.
Yeah. I know I'm not quite used to council politics, but that does seem strange. Anyway,
I think it was to encourage some of the wards, of which there are many, who do not have a ward plan to get one done. Ours might be a dynamic thing which isn't fully completed, but we do have one.
Okay.
Councillor, can I just jump in there, please?
Is that Beverly?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, can I just jump in?
Yeah, of course.
I'd just like to say, just to reiterate what Elliot was saying, and also yourself, with the ward plan, you can just have with your priorities now. You can just have interim priorities. You can only, you can just have a couple. You don't need to have the full, 6, 7, 8 priorities, because we have got some wards where they haven't even started a ward plan. But in order to access the Commonwealth Games Fund, you've got to have your priorities. So the way forward for them has been to do an interim priorities. So you can actually, for the ward, you've got your ward plan. Just review what your priorities are, and just have a couple of interim priorities, because that will take you up to next year, and then after that, obviously, then with the all-out elections, then the whole process starts again.
Right.
So that's just a suggestion.
The irony can't be lost on us that this is the ward plan 2018 to 22, and here we are in 21. Other wards must be in an even worse mess, but
I can assure you there are some wards that do not have a plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
there are some wards that haven't had meetings, haven't had forum meetings.
Yeah. But I think the whole idea is to make sure that the ward just doesn't lose out. No ward loses out on the Commonwealth Games Fund. So, yeah, we have to sort of encourage, councillors and wards to sort of work with residents to sort of put something together. But you're in that, you've already done your ward plan. It's just a matter of refreshing the priorities.
No, the thing that's missing, Beverly, is there's no plan.
Well, we've got an outline plan, and obviously we need to update it because we need to put Councillor Stanford on it as well, and that sort of thing as well. So but the bulk of it's there. So it's just a matter of just pinning down a couple of priorities really with your with the group, and just moving that forward, and then we can do the whole thing again next year.
I know we're out of time, Beverly, but what we're doing is something very expedient in order to get access to money for things that we know we want to get the money for. We have failed to produce a plan in 4 years.
take it forward, Elliot. I've made a suggestion. I think is that.
And
Dominic?
I'm totally supportive of that, Kate. We've got to, we are where we are now
tonight and do it with those that wanted to, or we could start afresh and have a time limited thing where we've just got people who've just got those papers in front of them and we just concentrate on doing that. Dominic.
I think the latter is a stronger suggestion. I think most people here would be happy to agree that we can adopt the temporary outline plan of 2018-2022 in the interim whilst we are looking at funding from the community fund, on the basis that we are having a working group established that will try and knock up a bit more of a robust plan for the next 12 months and then present that back at the next ward forum for full adoption by the whole community at the ward forum, and then we'll review the situation post-election next year.
Can I just briefly ask, is it a working group you want, or is it a working battalion?
I want a small group of people.
Thank you very much, Councillor.
Absolutely focused on just getting some short priorities down with a backup plan behind them.
Because you know as well as I do from past experience, the bigger the group, the bigger the problems.
Yeah.
I'm looking for people who are just super interested.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that will include Councillor Stanford and myself, obviously, because it is in actual fact our plan. And then if people can pop things into the chat, and we will try to make sure as many people as who are interested are involved. But obviously it will depend on timetabling. We will try and get everybody in. I can see Claire has got her hand up.
Oh yes, she would. Oh, no.
I'm just trying to discover how to get into the chat because I'll be interested in a small group to sort out the plan.
Great, we'll make sure Beverly's got your name down there. You get into the chat, you go up at the top, there's a little speech bubble. Click on that. You've got the participants, then you've got the conversation, then you've got the hands thing. But I know sometimes people can't find those hand things. Okie dokie. It's been a very busy ward forum. I think we got jinxed right from the start, but thank you very much, Preet, for bringing that. But I think because we hadn't seen Preet for a while, it was a lot of questions. And I do apologise. I've tried to keep us to time and failed. It will be, if we're online, we'll probably have Dominic leading next time, but it may be that we can meet in the flesh. I will, and Dominic and I, Councillor Stanford and I will find a date, and my plan will be to do this in very early July. What we will try and do with the group that are going to look at the ward plan and ward priorities, we'll try and put something together in the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Is that okay? And I'm just going to finish and see if there's anybody else wants to say. I've got somebody's hand up and I can't work out who it is. Claire, is it your hand still up? I'm going to put Claire's hand down and see what happens. No, I can't see anybody else's hands up. So I'm sorry we got overtaken by a number of things today. We once again had a lot to do in a short time. I'll have a conversation with Councillor Stanford about perhaps the timing. Perhaps we do need to make it a bit longer, but perhaps if we've already had a separate ward plan meeting, we perhaps might not need to. Can I just check, has anybody got any other business before we finish tonight? Okay, I'll take that resounding silence as a no. Elliot, I'm going to assume you want to get involved in our ward plan.
I did put my email address in the list.
Great, that's lovely. And we will be, Councillor Stanford and I will be in touch over the next few days. I think we need to get cracking on that as soon as we can, Dominic, I think, and try and get perhaps a date in for next week if it's all possible. That we will just focus on those. So we'll just make sure everyone's got the ward plans in front of them, and we'll have a chat about that. Okay, can I thank everybody for coming this evening? Actually, I'll put my camera back on. I just took it off because I was having real trouble actually with reception. Can I thank everybody for coming this evening and for their contributions, both members of the community and people from everywhere else like doors, and can I thank Preet as well. So we've had a lot to get through today. We will try to see if we can put in place a real face-to-face ward meeting in July. But what we'll try and do is I'll try and book somewhere for that, and we'll, if we have to resort to having an online meeting again, we'll do that. If it's online, Councillor Stamford will be chairing, we'll alternate. If not, we'll see if we can get someone from the community, if we've got a live one, or maybe Councillor Stamford would will chair it anyway. It's easier. I'm telling you, Dominic, it's easier to chair it when it's a meeting in a room. Can I thank everyone, and thank you very much, and we'll have something in early July. Thanks very much, and thanks for coming tonight.
Thank you, everyone.